After Congress leader Praveen Chakravarti tweeted this, one particular economic comparison has been getting a lot of attention. That Tamil Nadu's total debt is now higher than Uttar Pradesh's. That this reverses a pattern that held for almost all of last decade. And the narrative is being pushed that it tells a simple story of fiscal failure in one state and discipline in the other. It sounds pretty straightforward, right? More debt looks like irresponsibility and less debt looks like prudence. But that story is really wrong, because debt by itself does not tell you whether an economy is weak or strong. It does not tell you whether people are doing better or worse. So let's look at the other data that can give us a better picture. Data that can put the debt numbers in the right context. Because without that context, the comparison isn't just incomplete, it's meaningless and misleading. Look, this isn't a contest between Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, but it's about how economic numbers are being read out of context. Let me explain. This is our first episode in 2026, so let me start by wishing all of you a happy and healthy new year. If you have stayed with Let Me Explain through 2025, then you know what we try to do here. We slow the news down, we put numbers in context, and we simplify the news for you. We also hit the ground, spoke to people, looked through data, and try to bring you the full picture every single episode. If Let Me Explain helped you see facts through the noise, then do support us, because we keep doing this only with your backing. Stay with us throughout 2026 and of course beyond that too. So scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description and you can contribute any amount of your choice. When people hear that the state's debt has increased, we tend to look at it as a flaw, as if borrowing in itself is proof of bad behavior, fiscal laziness, and economic decline. So when a data circulates saying that Tamil Nadu's total debt is now higher than Uttar Pradesh's, it sounds like a story of failure on Tamil Nadu's part and discipline on Uttar Pradesh's part. It sounds simple, but it's deeply misleading, like I said earlier. Debt by itself does not tell you how an economy is doing. It's just one number. And like most numbers in economics, it becomes meaningful only when you place it in the right context. So let's do exactly that and unpack what this comparison actually means and what it leaves out. Debt is a tool. Every modern government uses debt to fund investment, to smooth shocks, and to support growth. The real question here is how much debt exists relative to the size and strength of the economy that must service it. If I tell you that one person has a loan of 10,000 rupees and another person has a loan of 5,000 rupees, you still do not know who's financially worse off unless you also know what they earn. A person who's earning 1 lakh rupees a month can manage a debt of 10,000 easily, whereas a person who's earning 5,000 rupees a month may struggle with a loan of 5,000 rupees. So for a state, that income is measured by GSDP. This is the total value of everything produced in that state in 1 year. It's also its economic capacity. And this is what ultimately determines whether a given level of debt is manageable or risky. Now let's apply that lens to Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. Tamil Nadu's debt is 9.29 lakh crores and its total GSDP is 35.6 lakh crores. So Tamil Nadu's debt is around 26% of its GSDP. Let's look at Uttar Pradesh now. Its debt is around 9.03 lakh crores and its total GSDP is around 30.8 lakh crores. So UP's debt is around 29 to 30% of its GSDP. Now let's consider the population sizes. Uttar Pradesh has around 19 crore people. Tamil Nadu has around 7 crore. UP's population is around 2.7 times of Tamil Nadu. Yet, Tamil Nadu's economy is slightly larger. That means Tamil Nadu produces more economic output with just 1/3 of the population of Uttar Pradesh. This difference becomes even more clearer when you look at the per capita figures. Per capita NSDP is the total value of goods and services produced in a state divided by its population. In India, this is often used as the official measure for a state's per capita income. It matters for state debt because this indicates how much capacity residents have to support and repay the debt. Tamil Nadu's per capita NSDP is around 3,61,619 rupees, whereas UP's is 1,08,572 rupees. So Tamil Nadu's per capita NSDP is about 3.33 times that of Uttar Pradesh. This gap reflects long-term differences in education, skills, industrialization, urbanization, and job quality. There are, of course, issues with looking at per capita income as indicators of whether all the people are economically healthy, because a significant number of wealthy people can tilt the scales. So from what I explained so far, it becomes clear that debt alone cannot be looked at as a singular number. But why do we do so? Because politicians cutting across party lines have used these same numbers to declare failure or success. A ruling party today could have used the same numbers when it was in the opposition and labelled it as a failure. Now let's get back to what richer economies can do. They can raise more tax revenue, they can service more interest, and they can carry higher levels of debt without much stress. Meanwhile, poorer economies cannot do this just as easily. So when someone says Tamil Nadu has more debt, the first question should always be more debt relative to what? Relative to income, relative to productivity, and relative to economic capacity. Not relative to Uttar Pradesh or any other state. And on these counts, Tamil Nadu is doing fairly strong. Now let's address another assumption that often sneaks into this debate. Lower debt doesn't automatically mean better governance, because lower debt can mean lower investment. A state that builds fewer schools can have lower debt. A state that builds fewer hospitals can have lower debt, and a state that spends less on nutrition, transport, welfare, all can have lower debt. Over decades, Tamil Nadu has invested heavily in public goods. It has invested in education, in public health, in nutrition, and in social protection through a plethora of welfare schemes by consecutive governments. Now, as a result, it has lower infant mortality, lower maternal mortality, higher life expectancy, better school enrollment, and better overall HDI, that's Human Development Indices. This is keeping in mind large Indian states. Now, these outcomes are not free. They require sustained public spending over many, many years, in fact, decades. So lower debt is not automatically a sign of prudence. It can also be a sign of underinvestment. Let's consider the effect of COVID-19. It was a once-in-a-century shock. Economies collapsed, health systems were under extreme pressure, governments had to borrow just to prevent disasters. Now, in response to the pandemic, the union government temporarily increased the borrowing limit for states from the usual 3% of its GSDP to up to 5%. Now, this was done in order to create fiscal space for extra health spending, welfare support, and economic recovery. While we do not have the exact numbers on which state utilized how much, economists say that this could be another factor why Tamil Nadu's debt rose more after COVID. Borrowing during a crisis is not recklessness. It's a necessity. What matters is what happens after that. In Tamil Nadu's case, the debt ratio has stabilized and it's slowly declining. The fiscal deficit is around 3% of its GSDP, which is well within the limits set by fiscal responsibility laws. It's important to note that states follow fiscal rules set under their FRBM laws and the guidance of the Finance Commission. The key rule here is simple. States are expected to keep their fiscal deficit close to 3% of their GSDP. That 3% benchmark is what defines responsible borrowing in normal times. So according to this, Tamil Nadu is not borrowing uncontrollably. At the same time, Tamil Nadu's economy has continued to grow. Real growth has stayed at 7%, driven by manufacturing and services. Tamil Nadu is one of India's largest state economies, usually ranked only to Maharashtra. It is also one of the most diversified. It has a strong manufacturing base in automobiles, electronics, machinery, and textiles. It has a large and growing services sector. It has significant exports. It has a steady private investment inflows. This diversification matters. It makes growth more stable and resilient. Between 2024 and 2025, Tamil Nadu's GSDP was estimated at around 31.5 lakh crore rupees, growing at roughly 16% in nominal terms. That placed it among the top growth performers amongst large states. Now consider human development. Tamil Nadu's HDI is around 0.69 compared to India's average of 0.64. Literacy is higher than the national average. Life expectancy is higher. Poverty is lower. This means that the state has converted growth into social outcomes. That matters for debt too. Healthier and better educated populations are more productive. They earn more. They generate more tax revenue. And over time, that reduces fiscal pressure. When you look at what the government spends on, this becomes clear. Education receives the single largest sectoral allocation, with over 54,000 crore going into school and higher education together, which works out to roughly around 13% of the state's total budget. Health receives around 20,000 crores, or about 5% of the total expenditure. And this funds public hospitals, medical colleges, primary health centers, preventive care and outreach programs. A large share of revenue spends also go into welfare and social protection, including nutrition programs, pensions, income support schemes, transport subsidies, and benefits targeted at women, children, and vulnerable households. These programs act as economic stabilizers. They reduce household risk, support consumption during downturns, and prevent people from falling into extreme poverty when shocks occur. Tamil Nadu is also investing heavily in long-term economic capacity. The state has planned over 57,000 crores in capital expenditure, which is around 13% of the total budget. This goes into roads and highways, water supply and water body restoration, urban development, transport infrastructure, and industrial corridors. Finally, let's look at revenue. Tamil Nadu raises around 3/4 of what it spends from its own taxes and non-taxes sources. Only about 1/4 comes from union government grants and any kind of spending. Uttar Pradesh, meanwhile, depends on central funds and grants for more than half of its revenue. So what can we see in these numbers? Debt matters, but only when taken into account along with other factors. The size of the economy matters, the direction of growth matters, the quality of investment matters, and the strength of the revenue base matters. And on all these measures, Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh are not just different, they're on a different scale. This is why simply saying that one has more debt and the other is less is not just misleading, like I said. It is also meaningless. Because in economics, context matters more than raw numbers. Look, just before I wrap this up, it's important to point out that this isn't about whether Tamil Nadu is great or Uttar Pradesh is great. It isn't a contest between states. All states have to develop for India to get stronger. But all we're trying to say here is put the numbers that is put in front of you in the right context to get the right picture.